Hello and welcome. The focus of this class is relax and unwind. And the theme of this particular relax and unwind class is patience. So oftentimes when our body is wound up, our nervous system is on high alert, it takes us time to settle things down. So we have two components of our nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, that's often times referred to as fight and flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is referred to sometimes as rest and digest. Our sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, can come on just like that, really fast when we need it to. And sometimes it comes on really fast, just like that, when we actually are not in danger, but maybe we see an image that's disturbing. We feel stress from demands at work. Something happens in our lives or in the world at large that causes this response to activate. And this fight or flight response is important. It's important that we have it, and it also can be really hard on us physically. So it's also very important to balance out the nervous system with relax and rest and digest, the parasympathetic nervous system. So this nervous system, this part of our nervous system, takes about 40 minutes sometimes to actually come into full expression. And that's why I wanted to have the theme of patience. So oftentimes we want our body to be relaxed. We want our mind to be at ease. We want tension in our neck or low back to just release. And it takes patience. There's a quote, oftentimes attributed to Sharon Salzberg, that says, "You can't rush a wave to shore any faster than the ocean brings it in." And this is kind of humorous to me to think about, standing behind a wave and trying to push it in. And the same thing is true for relaxation. We can't force it. I want to take a moment to tell this story, and it's a personal story of when I was about 6 years old. We lived in Sugar House, and we had a driveway that was right next to our neighbor's driveway, and in between the two driveways there were 20 rose bushes or so. They were beautiful rose bushes, and my mom was wonderful at pruning them, and every summer these lovely roses would emerge. And I remember there was one rose in particular, it was a yellow rose, and I just loved it, and I was so excited for when it would bloom. And so as the buds came up and I could kind of see this rose, but I could see that this was the yellow one, and I could see the little bit of yellow starting to kind of emerge from the outer layers of blossoms. And so being a young child, I thought, the rose is in there, I'm going to get it out and look at it. And so I pulled the green outer leaves off, or the petals off, and then what exposed was this really wilted little tiny yellow rose that wasn't quite ready to bloom yet. I was trying to force that rose to bloom, and I was so disappointed, and I learned that I couldn't force it. It had to bloom and blossom and grow in its own time. And that's very much what relaxation is like. We really can't force it. And so for this practice, I want to encourage you to be patient with yourself, to know that it's very wholesome to want to relax, to want to unwind, to want the mind to be quiet, to want the muscles to be at ease. And that takes time. There's a few things you need for this practice. So no special clothes. I'm just wearing street clothes, but I do have, my pants are loose fitting, so you'll definitely want to have loose fitting around your waist or tummy. And then a couple blankets. So one blanket that you can just have in a fold, and then another blanket that you'll take, and we'll get these props ready before. We won't use these for a little bit, but we'll get them ready so that they're ready for you. So I'm having this folded blanket like this, and I'm going to, from here, put it into thirds. So this is a little miniature bolster or Maybe you're familiar, we have pillows called pranayama pillows, and you can use one of those if you have one available, or this works just great too. Another thing that I'd like you to have is a small throw pillow. And this is, so when we're lying on our backs, if you like something underneath your head, you can have that. And then also, you could use a wrap, or you could use an eye pillow. At 2 times towards the end of our practice, we'll be placing something over our eyes if you want to. So you might have that handy as well. So if you don't have that stuff right now, go ahead and just press pause and gather your supplies, and then we'll start our practice. And we'll start our practice lying down. And so finding yourself in a comfortable lying down position. You might have the small pillow underneath your head. You might have one of the blankets underneath your knees. You may choose to have your knees bent with the soles of the feet on the floor. And if you're comfortable to close your eyes, let your eyes gently close. Taking several breaths, arriving in this posture. You might notice some tension in your body, and if you notice that, reminding yourself that's really normal, and that to the best of your capacity, perhaps on the exhale, just softening a little bit. So you might notice some tension around your eyes, and you can relax your eyes, or maybe there's some tension in your jaw. You can relax your jaw or even your tongue, allowing yourself to be held, so to speak, by the support underneath you. It might be called for to move around a little bit and just kind of shift your position so you can be that much more comfortable. And I'd like to start by reading a poem by Jan Richardson. The title of the poem is How the Light Comes. I cannot tell you how the light comes. What I know is that it is more ancient than imagining, that it travels across an astounding expanse to reach us, that it loves searching out what is hidden, what is lost, what is forgotten, or in peril, or in pain, that it has a fondness for the body, for finding its way toward flesh, for tracing the edges of form, for shining forth through the eyes, the hand, the heart. I cannot tell you how the light comes, but that it does, that it will, that it works its way into the deepest dark that enfolds you. Though it may seem long ages in coming or arrive in a shape you did not foresee. And so may we this day turn ourselves toward it. May we lift our faces and let it find us. May we bend our bodies to follow the arc it makes. May we open and open more and open still to be blessed by the light that comes. Allowing those words to land in your body. And then we'll begin some movement. So I'd like to invite you to hug your knees into your chest. We're going to hold on to the knees or the shins. Perhaps if it's tricky to gather this part of your body with your hands, you can use your wrap or strap. And just begin to gently move, massaging your low back with the floor. So you might tilt side to side, or you might move circularly. You might even draw the knees in and away from the chest. No rush here, being patient with yourself, listening to your body, and responding with kindness and attentiveness to what's called for. When you feel complete with this movement, please place your feet back down onto the floor with your knees bent, and finding a comfortable position for your arms. So they might be straight out from your shoulders, they might be closer in to your sides. You might even rest them on your lower ribs. I'm going to take the knees, or take the feet, and step them a little bit wider than hip distance apart here. And begin to move into a twist back and forth, dropping your knees to one side and then the other. Staying in a range of motion that feels safe and comfortable for your back. So it could be very small. If your low back is particularly vulnerable or tight, you can keep the range of motion small. You can also increase the range of motion. Directing your attention right into the physical sensations that are arising in your body as you participate in this movement, in this twist. I'm noticing it's called for me to move my head in the opposite direction of the knees. So just letting this organic unfolding happen. And then coming to stillness, bringing your knees back up and stepping your feet in a bit more. So your feet are about hip width apart now, so more narrow. And let's straighten your right leg out onto the floor and hugging the left knee in. So same thing here, you might use a strap or a wrap if it's difficult for you to reach your shin. That's just fine, you can use that. Or you can hold on to the shin with your hands clasped or onto the knee. As we're doing this posture, bring some attention into your upper body. So let your head rest back, your shoulders, your jaw. If you noticed during the beginning centering where we were seeing if there was tension in the body, if you're noticing that maybe it's kind of crept back into the eyes or the jaw, just rest this area. And then start some movement with your left ankle. Moving the ankle, circling the ankle, and you can move in both directions. You might notice, especially if you've just been busy, engaged in something intense, that your mind wanders back to that. And see if you can, when you notice it, there's this like friendly, oh, I'm thinking about that, and I'm going to direct my attention back into the body, right into the sensation of the ankle. How do I feel this? What do I feel here? And then taking the right hand to the outside edge of your left knee, placing your left hand somewhere towards the side of the body, or you could even have it out perpendicular from your shoulder. And then we'll be twisting that left knee over. So here, depending on your low back, you could have a very conservative twist and just have your knee
cross the body a little bit, or you can have the knee come all the way over. If you're letting that left arm come out to the side, having it come straight out from the shoulder can help to facilitate a stretch in the chest as well, and you can gaze over your left arm, your fingers. And coming back, untwisting yourself, and letting both of your legs straighten out onto the floor. You can bring your arms out to the side. You can even bring your arms up overhead a little bit. I like to call this, reminds me of a chromosome or an X. Just letting myself rest into the floor and letting yourself rest into the floor. And let's take the other side. So we'll start with bending both knees and placing both of your feet on the floor, and then letting the left leg stretch out and hugging the right knee up and in. Bringing attention to the upper body, allowing the head to rest back. And you can fine-tune this. So if you feel like you want to have a little bit more support underneath your neck, you can bolster the head up with maybe a bit more of a fold in a blanket or a larger pillow. Resting your eyes and your jaw, your shoulders. And then begin to roll through your right ankle. See if you can bring a sense of curiosity to this movement. What does it feel like? Where do I feel this? I'm noticing the right ankle is a bit more stiff than my left ankle. Not quite the range of motion, which is just fine. That's what's here right now. That's what I'm noticing. Maybe even pointing and flexing. And then taking the left hand to the outside edge of your right knee. If you'd like to let your right arm stream along the floor and rest, and then coming into a twist that feels appropriate for this side. So see if you can refrain from going into automatic pilot and just doing the same thing on this side that you did on the first side. And actually explore this side as it's new. You haven't done this side before, so you might be more or less flexible on this side. Moving slowly with care and respect for your body. If you'd like to turn the head towards the right. So what I'm noticing here is this right side, just like the right ankle, this right side of my low back is much stiffer. It feels like an okay stretch, but this is the limit for me. And I'm going to take some breaths and imagine the breaths traveling into the area where I feel the most intense stretch. And you might not feel the most intense stretch in your low back. You might feel it in your hip or the outside of your thigh. Or you might even feel the most intense stretch in the upper chest. And when you feel ready, you can come on out of that pose and take that leg out and coming into that X. And take a few breaths here. Let's use our imagination here and imagine that your breath, it doesn't happen this way, but we're just using our imagination, that the breath is traveling on the inhale in through your navel center and on the exhale out through the navel center. And as it travels in through the navel center, imagine it expanding down through the legs and up through the arms and to the crown of the head and to the tail. And then on the exhale, letting it condense back from the outer areas of the body out through in the navel center. Using our imagination here. Let's do one more twist. We'll bring the knees back up to a bent and soles of feet on the floor, and having the soles of the feet a little bit closer together, finding that comfortable position for your arms, whether it's straight out, whether your arms are down to your side, whether your hands are resting on your lower ribs, and we'll take the knees to one side. So if you have that extra blanket, you could do something if your knees don't easily come down to the floor. And mine come down to the floor, but it's not the most comfortable. I'm going to wedge the blanket, and so it's more of a restorative kind of restful twist here. I don't have as much of a sensation of twisting in my low back. My low back is still twisting, but I'm giving the muscles a little bit of an alleviation of stretching them so much, and it feels nice. Another thing you could do here is place a blanket in between your knees. Deciding what feels best for the head, the neck. You could turn away from the knees or having your gaze just up towards the ceiling. You might choose to close your eyes. And taking the second side. At any time, if you're wanting to spend more time in any of these poses, please feel free to do that. Just press pause and stay in the pose as long as you'd like to. If you ever come into a posture and you feel like you need to shift around a little bit, listen to that calling. So for me, I'm in this posture and I'm like, I just need to lift my hip and then set it back down in a little bit different position, and then, that's better. Bringing the knees back up. And let's move to all fours. So we'll be moving into some basic cat and cow pose. And you want to have your wrists and hands just below your shoulders and your knees below your hips. If this is challenging for your wrists, you can come to fists or you can come onto fingertips. I'm just going to take some rounding here. So bringing the arms in a little closer, rounding the back up, and then dipping. I'd like you to keep doing this posture and exploring, and notice that you're breathing, and notice the rhythm of the breath and how it is weaving into the posture. And see if you can sort of link this movement and the breath and flow, breath and body. And then coming to stillness, and we'll take a side body stretch. So I want to give two variations to this. So one variation is to come into a child's pose, and I'm giving another variation for this because I know for some people this is hard on your knees. bringing the arms out and walking your hands to one side. And walking your hands to the other side and staying
on each side for 3 to 5 breaths. I'm not going to stay that long because I want to show you the other variation. And this could also be done sitting in a chair. So if you don't want to sit cross-legged on the floor, you could sit in a chair and bring one hand to the side of the chair and bring your other arm up and over. And do both sides. So either one of those variations, deciding for yourself what you feel like would be best, and then staying in that posture one side for 3 to 5 breaths, transitioning out, and then the other side for 3 to 5 breaths. And when you're complete with that, please come to sitting. So you might, as I was at the beginning, sitting on the edge of a blanket. That might feel nice for you. You could also sit in a chair. I think the next couple postures that we're going to be doing are particularly, for me anyway, relevant when it comes to you can't rush a wave to shore any faster than the ocean brings it in. I tend to hold a lot of tension in my neck, and I really want it to release, and I know that it just takes time and patience. And so in this posture that we'll be doing, I'd like to just go over a little bit of posture and awareness of how you're aligned. We spend a lot of times with our arms forward, right? And this rounds our upper back, and that actually can be one of the reasons that we might have some tension in our neck, is because we're not in neutral spinal alignment. And so when you're sitting and your arms are in front of you, it just rounds your upper back. So as we do this next stretch, I want to encourage you as much as possible to come into neutral spine. So I'm going to place my hand, one way we can do that is to place our hands a little higher up on our thighs, and our elbows are at our sides rather than in front of. So elbows at your sides. Again, you can do this sitting in a chair, you can do it sitting on the ground. If you're sitting on the ground and your hips are tight, having something underneath your sit bones helps to tilt your pelvis forward, so you're a little bit more neutral too in your spine. For such a simple posture, that might feel like a lot of information, but it's important to have the neutral spine as we come into this posture. So what we'll be doing is simply letting the head rest and stretch to the side. So the ear is dropping towards the shoulder. The hands are on the lap enough so that the elbows are along the sides of the torso. And this is where it's also important to revisit the jaw and relax your jaw. So let your jaw be slack. The masseter muscles, these muscles here, are some of the strongest muscles in our body for their size. And oftentimes we will clench our jaw, and then that clenching will resonate down and add tension into the neck. So relaxing the jaw here. You may explore a little bit, maybe tilting the head back and a little bit forward. Noticing my arms are creeping forward, and if you notice that too, just reestablish the elbows, the sides. If you need a little help in the lifting up, and then we'll turn the head side to side. Let's take the second side. I'm relaxing the jaw, making sure my elbows are by the side of my body, and then tilting the ear to the shoulder. if you want to explore a bit of movement here. What I'm noticing is this side, normally it's the right side that feels stiff, but this left side is quite a bit stiffer, and the movement backwards and forwards here is quite small range of motion. So I'm honoring that and listening in to my body and then responding in a way that's full of care. I'm going to gently nudge, give some support on the head to come up, and then move my head side to side. For some of you, a full circle of the head might feel good for this. That doesn't feel good for my neck, so I'm just going to do a half circle. So deciding what's right for you and then moving. I often joke that this is a sound meditation as well because I hear so much snap, crackle, and pop in my neck. So full circle or semicircle, reminding yourself to relax your jaw. And coming to stillness, and we'll roll through the shoulders, bringing your shoulders up, back, down, and forward. And then a fluid circling. And change the direction, so up, forward, down, and back. And any other movement here that might feel good to you. So maybe just some fluid rolling through the shoulders and moving side to side. You might roll the pelvis, the spine. Okay, so let's come back to laying on our backs. And this time, if you need to have something underneath your head, let's make it the smallest fold of a blanket that you can comfortably be with. So it might just be one fold, or if you're okay to not have anything underneath your head, go ahead and come to lying on your back. And again, we'll have the knees bent and the soles of the feet on the floor. We're going to do one more thing for our shoulders. So as you come to lying here, so this is what I'm noticing. When I come to lying here, I do need something underneath my head. My chin is a little bit this way towards the ceiling, which is not very comfortable. So I'm going to do just a one fold of a blanket underneath my head. I'm going to bring my arms down to the sides. Take a full deep inhale, a full exhale. Then the next time on your inhale, slowly lift your arms up. The top of the inhale, pause, and then exhale. And at the bottom of the exhale, pause and then inhale. So we'll move back and forth in this rhythm of connecting breath and movement and seeing without letting it, you don't want to have the breath be strained or feeling strenuous or difficult, but see if you can grow the length of the breath and slow the movement of the arms.
as we talk about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems and continue on with the movement as I talk about this, we know that the breath is very much related to the fight or flight or rest and digest. We know when we're at ease and the breath is easy, and we know we can feel our body when we're feeling more of a heightened state of stimulated nervous system, the breath becomes more shallow. So growing the breath can actually help to elicit the parasympathetic nervous system and response and calm you down. So the next time that the arms come down to their sides, rest there in stillness. And then we'll move into a restorative yoga pose. So this is where we'll be using the blankets. So just refold this blanket into thirds. This is a mini bolster. So being at home or wherever you're doing your practice is nice because you can pause the recording and get what you need. So when we come into this posture, we'll have our hips on the ground. So the hips are on the ground and your spine will be on the blanket. And one of the things I like about this particular fold is there's kind of this graduated angle from the way that the blanket's folded, and that can be really nice. So if you have a less graduated fold, like something like this side of the blanket, that can be a little bit trickier for your low back. So you might consider, you could even do something like take your wrap and help to have a more graduated transition from the hips to the back that's on the blanket. So that could be something that's nice. And then placing the other blanket, probably one more fold. This is going to be underneath our head. And then have your wrap or eye pillow handy as well. So I'm going to come to sitting, and again, I'm not sitting on the blanket, I'm just sitting, it's snuggled up right to the base of my spine. I'm coming back into lying down, having to take my ponytail in and out. All right, so I'm going to fine tune this. One thing that's really important for your body in order to feel relaxed and safe is that not having your head and neck like this. This is a very vulnerable position for our neck to be in, that's exposed. So we want to have the chin slightly tilting towards the sternum. And the way that you do that is to have the support underneath your head. And if your upper back is quite rounded, you'll need more support underneath your head to establish this alignment here with chin tilting slightly in. So the spine is streaming along the blanket or bolster. The head is resting on a blanket that is enough of a lift so that your chin can tilt. I'm going to bring my arms to my sides. And then there's several options for your lower body. I really like to have my legs crossed, but I'm pretty flexible in my hips, so it's comfortable. You can also have your knees bent. And if you bend your knees, one of the things you can do is widen the stance of the feet a little bit so that you can just drop your knees in towards each other so that you're not using the muscles of your thighs to keep your legs up. They're just leaning against each other to be more passive. Another thing you could do is have your legs out straight. So your hands can be at your sides. If your chest is particularly tight, having your arms here can be challenging. You could even bring pillows underneath to give a little bit of lift there. You could have your hands on your lower ribs. And then have the eye covering if that feels like a good idea for you. So we're setting ourselves up here in a restorative yoga pose. This pose in particular is intended to help us to release the primary and secondary breathing muscles and also open the chest. If you need to press pause and get all your things gathered up to be in the most comfortable position for yourself, go ahead and do that. And then at the beginning, the first 5 or 7 breaths of this posture, we'll be doing something called Viloma Pranayama, which is a pranayama technique, breathing practice that can, again, help our bodies to settle, help our nervous systems to settle. At any time during these 5 or 7 breaths, if it just doesn't feel quite right, just return to your natural rhythm. So you're staying in the restorative posture. Your eyes can be closed, or you can have covering over your eyes. And then let your exhale just be a little bit longer than your inhale. So you're not forcing it, it's not a strain, it's just a little bit longer. And on that longer exhale, let your body rest into the support underneath you, letting go of any tension that you might notice. If that's possible. So sometimes we have tension and we really want it to dissolve and let it go, and it just doesn't, and that's okay too. And letting yourself letting the breath return to its natural rhythm. There's nothing you can do, there's nothing you have to do, the body will just breathe, and you don't need to pay attention to the breath at all. Letting your senses relax, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, even though there's the sound of my voice and maybe other sounds in your environment. See if you can let yourself sort of withdraw, knowing that they'll come in, your ears will hear, your body will feel, but just let everything come to you rather than seeking anything out. Restorative poses can be done for a long period of time. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to just invite you, if you'd like to, if you want to stay in this posture for 10 more minutes, just press pause and stay in the posture. Or if you'd like to come out, we'll make our way into Shavasana, our final resting pose. And I'm going to say the same thing for Shavasana. So I won't be recording a long Shavasana, but I really would love to encourage you, if you're feeling like you'd like to stay in Shavasana for a longer period of time, to listen to that call if you have the time to do it. One of my teachers, Judith Hanson-Lassiter, who I've taken many trainings with, she says it's not really Shavasana unless it's 20 minutes. And I know many teachers and many practices don't do a 20-minute Shavasana. So play around with that if you have time sometimes to actually give yourself that spacious 20-minute Shavasana. If you're not familiar with that word, Shavasana is the final resting pose. We come to stillness and lay on our backs. And since you have your props, I'll show you how you can set yourself up in a way that might be really comfortable. Something underneath your head and then something underneath your knees. And if you're chilly, I'm noticing my room right now is kind of cold, so if I was actually going to be doing Shavasana, I might put some socks on or get a blanket. to bring the blanket right underneath, right up to the base of my shoulders. It just feels a little, it's kind of comforting to have that there. And then placing an eye pillow or a wrap. As you first come into Shavasana, making any adjustments you need to make to be that much more comfortable. So for this Shavasana, in this video, we'll just do a few minutes. But in the future, or if today, if you're doing this practice and you want to stay longer, you can set some alarm for yourself so that you can maybe have a 10, 15, 20 minute Shavasana practice and really let yourself settle into and deepen potentially a state of relaxation. So there'll be silence for a couple minutes, and then I'll ring the bowl. We'll come out of the pose, come to sitting, and end our practice that way. If you felt that the Viloma Pranayama, extending your exhale a bit, was helpful, you can do that just for the first few breaths of Shavasana. And on that extension, you might consider letting yourself feel heavier and heavier and heavier, or just kind of melting into the support underneath you with each exhale. Taking some nice deep breaths, maybe reaching your arms up overhead, stretching, moving, and then making your way to sitting. And we'll sit for a moment, bringing hands to heart center, feeling your palms and fingers touching one another. Acknowledging the efforts that you took to care for yourself, to spend time with your precious body, to slow down, to cultivate more ease and health. So acknowledging your efforts. And thank you so much for joining. Namaste.